What's up YouTube? Today you and I are going to go to shoot with Emily, and it will be the occasion to share with you my greatest secrets to improve your portraits. Now you're hooked, I have your attention.
'Cause you're chasing the hurricane, taking the name flame. My God, it's such a shame. It's such a shame. 'Cause you got yourself into this. It says enter at your own risk. Now your name is on the list.
This dude is Kaliroe Lover, daughter of Butades. She thinks he's so awesome that one day, when she was bored, she thought, what if I tried to draw the shadow cast by my base face with coal on this old wood, just because, you know? And so the first portrait was born. Sculpture, painting, photography, from classicist to selfie, the portrait is the most represented artistic genre.
And that's great, because you know, it's also my favorite. We're going to finish preparing the bag, but I'm not going to waste my time telling you what I put in it, it's useless. We're going to stay very conceptual. I'm going to give you the 5 main steps my brain always goes through when I do a portrait photo shoot. No, the third one won't surprise you, no more than the others. And no, none of them have anything to do with gear. What's the best lens for? No.
Today is my first collaboration with Emily. We're going to shoot in her apartment on the theme we've chosen and that we are going to call cocooning.
And since it's the very first time I've been to a house, it brings me to the first point, know the environment. Whether it's through research, location scouting, previous images, here I had asked Emily to send me photos of her apartment before the session. You must have a clear vision of the environment, first of all as a space, but also of the content at your disposal and the potential light sources.
Here we have 3 places at our disposal: the bedroom, the living room, and finally the kitchen, where we will start.
Not only these 3 places are different in terms of space, content, light, but they also tell different stories.
As I was saying, we started in the kitchen with these totally uninteresting images. Here it's totally banal. I was testing the light. The chosen settings are not good at all. The pose is too curved. The handle in the background is very ugly. But she and I, we're just warming up. It takes time to get in the zone. It won't be any better here for the same reasons. And the paper towel there looks ugly. I didn't even take the time to check what was in the frame. Here we start to understand the environment a little better and to use the light source more efficiently. What I mean by content is all the furniture elements available in the space. Here the table, stove, etc. which not only serve to create the context, but also to compose the image using their geometry. So the environment does not necessarily serve as context, especially in a portrait. It can just serve as a light source, like here, where the purpose of the image is just a visual representation of Emily in an aesthetic way. But let's take these 3 photos. Each of them tells something different as the point of view moves away from the model and integrates additional elements. This image is not just a portrait, the subject is not Emily. This negative space, the hard lines, the material of the table, the steel of the cup, all these elements circle the model. I could have amplified the phenomenon by moving the plant a few centimeters and leave the wall empty, but on the contrary, the partial cut is voluntary. It is an element that we can see in the frame, but which is exterior to it. Except for the model, all that is alive is out of the frame. A very interesting image to analyze, and we can also note the perfect expression of Emily. Totally different atmosphere here, very cozy. We'll talk about the blur effect a little later, but it allows here to attenuate the not very aesthetic building in the background, still taking advantage of the warm tones opposed to the cold inside the room and the blue of the shirt. Nice atmosphere, very chill, very lo-fi hip-hop if you know what I mean. The environment in our case is not just the inside, it's also the outside, with the city in the background. On the other hand, the cars there, no, it's horrible, it takes you out of the bucolic imagery of the image. It's much better here, where the cars are still there, but they are just shapes and colors in the background. Much better. Again, it's the outside environment in the light that structures the image when the model is in the shadow. The model is all curves when the environment is made of strong lines. This is the Nikos version of the same image. The horizon is not straight, the focus is not where you expect it. Well, this is my thing, I know it won't speak to everyone, but I like what it says. I could have even classified it as one of my favorite images from the photoshoot.
And since we are talking about backlighting, it's time to move on the second step and talk about light. The role of the photographer is to write with light. I even separate it into 2 points to take into account. First, do you have enough resources, namely light? And second, how do you use it to represent what you want to tell? To continue the writing metaphor, do you have enough ink to write what you want to write? And then what is the writing style? Why choose one word over another? A good picture is not just a good overall exposure. It's being exposed in the places you want to be exposed to tell exactly the story you want to tell.
Today we shot in the early afternoon and the sky was quite grey, no sun anywhere. A very flat light, very diffuse, okay, but totally boring. With these backlightings, where I exposed for the outside, we have a story and an atmosphere that is totally different from these images, where I exposed for Emily's face, which overexposed the background, which will therefore wrap her with light and create this very soft, very ethereal atmosphere. Light is as important as the absence of light. Where you place the shadows is as important as where you expose your subject on the structure as on the narration of the image. The way you distort, play with light can also be interesting. I've already shown this in a lot of my videos, both on channeling the light with props as well as distorting it, for example by refracting it, diffracting it with glass or something else.
Some time ago, a company called Cinepax contacted me. They have a lot of online resources for filmmakers. I'll let you have a look on their website, but they also make filters and they sent me a pack. I thought it was a cool opportunity to test them. It's called split filters, diopter filters, which are used in cinema. It allows you to have 2 different focus planes where normally the depth of field wouldn't allow it. It's also overused in music videos for the simple reason that it's cool. But today we're obviously going to use it for photography. I've got 3 of them for different focal length, between 18 and 35, 50 and 100, blah blah blah. But the main interest of having 3 is to make Wolverine clothes like that.
This is the type of effect that we can expect. We're going to invert the main principle to have 2 different focuses while we are on the same plane of the image, which gives this vaporous, ethereal effect. We can create various atmospheres between softness and dream. Here, by masking a part of her face, it gives more a feeling of mystery, of doubt. In this case, it's not only the blur, we have the impression that the light envelopes her. We have a very early morning atmosphere. What is interesting with this tool is the fact that it's not a filter that you need to screw on the lens, but that you can hold in your hand. You can easily change the location of the blur, but by changing the angle, you can use it to play with the light by creating flares, for example. I really like this picture with its frame within the frame, thanks to the edges of the mirror. Flares or reflection also, like here.
Since we are talking about tools, you saw that I didn't talk about gear on purpose. This is my third point. I always try to keep in mind that intention precedes technique. We all want to push the specs to the maximum to use the equipment at our disposal, and often the one we don't dispose of. Take this, for example.
That's great, but what can I use it for? How can it be useful for me to compose or guide the reading of an image where I want it to be? Which part of the picture will I intentionally alter, and what does it mean? How does it help me to tell a story?
Not only intention precedes technique, but it is much more important. Avoid the trap of, oh, I can't do this because I don't have this lens or this accessory. Of course it's a limitation, but the state of mind is, okay, what do I want to tell? And then how do I do it with what I have? The story before determining the best way to tell it. But the opposite is also true, the overgear utilization. I don't know if it's the proper expression. The, oh, I have this lens, so that means that I absolutely have to use it.
Yes, if it's relevant, I could have shot everything at 50mm and wide open, try to bring out only the face of my model in the middle of an ultra blurry background, have a nice bokeh everywhere. But is this really what I want to tell? Or doesn't giving the environment its visual place tell a more interesting story?
Intention means planning and thinking ahead about the direction I want my images to take. And it's not necessarily a solitary activity. We come to the most important step, the model, the connection you're going to create with him or her, and how you're going to use this connection to transcribe a part of what he or she is. Here we're obviously going to talk more about models who pose deliberately and who have a certain experience of the camera, of positioning their bodies, their facial expressions, etc.
Je pleure, je crie, je bois, même parfois. Le regard vide sur les photos des belles années.
At the very beginning of the photoshoot, I always let the model pose without any instructions, and depending on his or her experience, I will be more and more directive over the time about what I would like. But working with experienced people is a real plus, and especially for beginners photographers. I didn't have to direct Emily, and she decided of most of the poses. I just oriented her sometimes in relation to my framing or when I liked her proposition, because that's what it's all about, propositions. These two photos are based on the same principle. What I want is to have these successive layers with the bed, the book, the direct look into the camera. And yet, just the different attitudes proposed by Emily make that the two photos do not express the same things at all.
I insist on this point, which is only my way of working, but many photographers consider that they are the artists and that the model is only modeling clay for their creativity. I am the genius because I know how to push the button. I don't know where this accent came from. I know a lot of photographers who think like that, and I can tell you that the feedback of some model friends is quite... It's a point of view, but the fact is that it's a collaboration and therefore an exchange, and this on several levels.
We exchanged with Emily beforehand, created a shared Pinterest to know what direction I wanted to give to the shooting, and her what she wanted to get. It's an observation that I made through experience. The more a model is involved in the creative process, the more her work will be good and the better the result will be. Especially in a theme like this, which is intimate, she needs to know what she wants to do, where the shooting is leading, and what doesn't interest her. It's not easy to be in your underwear in front of a stranger, and yet the model has to be comfortable in any circumstance. A photoshoot just have to be a pleasant moment. Fun and comfortable, these are the key words. It's your responsibility to create this kind of atmosphere. It's as much your role as thinking about the framing or the light in your pictures. And even those stolen pictures, when we all laugh together, if they are usually just a snapshot of good memories, can also sometimes be the best pictures for their authenticity.
So of course the first tool is humor, and if you look at my videos, you know that here, it's fun above all. The joke level is...
Mano, t'es actrice, on est d'accord?
Oui.
Alors, on fait ses propres cascades maintenant?
I'm such a funny guy. Yeah, I know it's not given to everybody. But humor isn't the only thing that chills and relaxes a situation. It's also about smiling, it lightens an atmosphere. It's cringe when people never smile, for real. I've been to some photo shoot, it was... Yeah, people who smile too much are scary too. Find the middle ground, figure it out. But it's largely up to you to create a caring atmosphere. Just being curious, creating a bond is also about getting to know a person, asking questions, taking an honest interest in what they are so that you can visually capture it as well. This kind of photoshoot, I see it as two cool and creative people just having a good time. So yes, it applies to this type of photoshoot with a pro model, but the state of mind is the same when you want to photograph strangers. If you want to transcribe an emotion, a story, the best way is to create a link, a bond. It's complicated and it deserves these whole videos dedicated to it because we're just flying over the subject. As well as the aspects of the model-photographer relationship that I would like to develop further, which I will do very soon, I'm sure. Yeah, you know what I'm gonna say, subscribe, smash that notification bell.
The last step is experimentation. Today it was all about to test these filters. Great image, I love the effect on the arm, the feeling it gives, combined with Emily's dreamy expression. It also works when the effect is more subtle, more vaporous, like here. I like upside down portraits. I'm just a little less convinced by the position of the finger here. I prefer the landscape version and her look a little more on the side. In the end, the use of these filters is great, both in photography and video.
Again, I'll let you go and see what they do on their website. You have an affiliate link in the description. But you can also search for other brands or switch to DIY mode. So diopters are going to be difficult to get, but you can use glass, plastic. You have a lot of other ways to deform and play with light. But the point is not there. It's not even necessary to create light effects. The important thing is to keep space for experimentation. I was talking about planning earlier. It's essential to plan everything, to be free not to follow the plan, and to be able to try outside path. In every photoshoot, in every act of creation, you have to allow yourself to be able to test, to have an area free of any expectation of results, of any pressure to get something good. Just let's try and see what we get.
Paradoxically, my favorite images from the shoot often fall into this category. Here I shoot through a window, we have the reflection but also a very diffuse light. Her expression is perfect as well as the position of her head in relation to her shoulder. Great colors thanks to the bouquet. Yeah, it's nice. Here too, it's her expression that makes me like this photo. The wide angle allows us to have this superposition of plans and these guidelines that gives a very immersive image. My favorite image with the mirror, it's simple but I like the aesthetics. The reading of an image can totally change according to its direction and orientation. Even the face and expression of a model can look different. Observe how this photo tells a totally different story every time I simply experience different reading directions. Here it's completely something else. Emily seems to be wrapped in a kind of cocoon. Yeah, I love it.
Think of Caliroe, the first portrait. It must not have been extraordinary, but she did well to persevere. The best often comes from experimentation. Or not, but it doesn't matter. The truth is that when I say, I don't like that, I don't like this style, when a photographer tells you that's the way to do it, when frustrated people in the comments come and write, no, real photography is not that. These are just opinions, and opinions are not facts. There is no more immutable rule than dogma in photography or in art or in creativity. Just proposition, experiments, whether people like them or not. Moral of the story, don't worry, just have fun and test. You can, for example, test this wonderful video about another photo shoot with the same theme, and here you can see how I edit my portraits in Lightroom. See you, mate, keep on creating.
Non, tu me boues pas.
Come with me, love.